Everyone, and welcome back to the Classic and Adventurous Comic Vault. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're tackling another Superman origin, finally getting back to these.
Yeah, we started this when I got here.
Yeah, months and months ago. We promised we would get back to them, and here we are. Mostly. I should mention that today we're doing Superman Birthright, and I should mention that I read this a week ago, and I'm going to show my hand a little bit right out the gate, but I'm going to do my level best to keep up with Eric on this. He just finished this. I found this incredibly unmemorable, and I feel like it's kind of seeping out of my head. So, hopefully...
Me reading this is like a decade in the making. I've been trying.
Hopefully it will come back. Yeah, and I mean, like, that's kind of a testament to, I guess just how we both felt about this, is that, like, you kept picking it up, and did you ever literally fall asleep trying to read it, or did you just...
I don't think so. I think I just got bored.
Yeah, okay, but metaphorically, his brain has gone to sleep so many times he hasn't been able to...
This is indicative of how I feel about Mark Waid.
Now, see, that's not fair. Or at least, I think Mark Waid is a good writer, and
this is my
there's a lot of stuff that I like. But is that just the thing that has stopped you from reading other things, or is that
not just this book, but anytime I read things by Mark Waid, I feel like.
But like, have you looked at his Flash? I mean, his Flash isn't like that.
I've not read his Flash.
I mean, I haven't read much of his Flash, but
whenever I read Mark Waid, it kind of feels dull, and I just can't connect with it.
Okay.
And this is just kind of a microcosm.
I'm gonna have to finally make you read at least some of his Daredevil, just because I have to know. Okay. I just have to know what you.
I read the first issue.
If you like any of that at all.
That was alright.
But anyway, so Superman Birthright is another Superman origin, and this is one of the out of continuity ones.
Well, this one's interesting.
Oh, okay.
So it's written out of continuity. It's out of continuity for about 2 years, and then right before Infinite Crisis, they go, Birthright's the continuity origin. And then Infinite Crisis happens, and then they go, well, Superman's got a new origin, and we're going to keep referencing a new origin, but we're not actually going to publish it for another, like, 3 years.
Oh, weird.
And then we finally got Superman's Secret Origin. But this was in continuity for about a year.
I think it was a week. And about a week we have this in continuity.
But initially, like it's supposed to be written out of continuity.
What is it about it that would even really impact the continuity that much? It's so kind of standard, with the exception of the background with Lex, which is about all I took away from it.
I guess maybe the Krypton stuff? I don't know. Because it's not John Byrne's Krypton, which is another problem with making continuity.
It feels like a kind of generic Krypton to me, though. There's nothing especially, interesting about it.
But it's really not John Byrne's Krypton, which makes me wonder if this becomes a canonical origin, what does the rest of the 90s look like? Like, that's the problem with retroactively changing an origin like Superman's, especially when we were so tight with how we built off of John Byrne.
Right, but then not too long after that, we had to kind of retcon all kinds of stuff in order to do New Krypton.
That's true.
Things like that.
That's true, but at least we had the excuse of Superboy Prime punching the walls of reality.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, okay.
And it's not a good point, but that's the point they made.
So this is... Right, but I had forgotten about that, so that's fair. So this comes out in 2004, and I guess... I should use the year to make the point that one of the things that I noticed all the way through this was Smallville influence. Mm-hmm. Just impossible to get around that. I have a hard time imagining that Mark Waid would even think to go to a Lex and a Clark that were friends when they were kids.
Well, that is
outside of that.
That is classic comics. That's Golden Age. That's Silver Age.
It is, but we haven't built it into one of these big origins.
No, but I could see.
And
Mark
it's been
Waid
a long time
doing
since
that.
we've gone back to. Oh, yeah, okay, that's fair.
Given that he loved Superman and all of that.
Yeah.
Because he talks about in the back that he wanted to do a purely scientific, like mad scientist Lex, and he's like, well, work for John Byrne, work for the animated series. Like, there must be something about this that works, so I'll do that. Mm-hmm. Although he is mostly a scientist.
Yeah.
Like, he is scientist first, businessman second.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like.
Yeah. That's something I can give it.
Yeah, sure. So you just finished it, and one of the things you said to me after you got finished was you got like 80 pages to the end and couldn't believe there was still 80 pages.
Yeah, I was like, there's still 80 pages. This is a 12-issue miniseries that could have been 6, I think. Well, I mean,
do you
really,
think it's just stretched too thin?
It's stretched so thin. I mean, I think it's kind of dull and boring to begin with. One of the problems is this is almost too quintessential, I think. It's not doing anything new or interesting. And I think there's things that it thinks it's doing that are new and interesting,
yeah,
but they're not.
There are places where it kind of passes itself on its back, where it's sort of like look, finally, in answer for why this is this way, or an origin for this thing.
Your big thing.
I think he does that a little bit with the costume and how and like the reasons that it's able to be indestructible and.
Yeah, he's overthought some of those things, but John Byrne did that too.
Yeah, but I think Waid does it a little bit more, certainly. But anyway, what were you saying?
Well, your big thing through it is Smallville's on.
Yeah.
Mine is, we are just past 9/11.
Fair, yeah.
We will not stop talking about terrorism, compromising freedom for protection.
Yeah, you meet Clark covering. Or not even, what am I talking about? He's not even a journalist yet. He's just like...
Well, he is, but he's going around interviewing people and just sending it into
He's
newspapers.
I couldn't remember if he was... Again, it's been a week and it feels like it's been 3 months. I couldn't remember if he was just, helping out on a mission trip or if he was actually a journalist.
No, he's a journalist. Yeah. Which, by the way, cut those 2 issues.
Yeah.
Those set you up for such a drastically different, completely from the ground up reinvented Superman origin. And then the rest of this book is everything you've seen before. And the fact that he was this, hotshot rock star reporter that was getting interviews with all these people that no one knew how he could get interviews with, all of that's gone the second he gets to Metropolis. It's how he gets the job, but no one's ever how did you...
But do you need that? Could it not just be a line when he gets there? Can you not just explain to Perry White that he was there? Do we really need to see it? Is that your question?
Well, I don't think it informs his character at all, because, it never comes up after his initial interview. It never comes up. There's a point where Perry White's threatening to fire him.
Yeah.
And he's never I hired you because you seemed like you could get interviews with anyone, and you were willing to go to any place. Where's that guy? It never comes up again. It doesn't inform how anyone perceives him after his initial meeting to get the job. I felt.
What I like about it is that is a couple things. First of all, we rarely see Clark Kent as the hard-hitting reporter before he goes to Metropolis, and I think it's kind of nice that he's already, because a lot of the time it's either he always wanted to be a reporter but he hasn't done a lot of it and he goes to Metropolis and he just sees if he can get his foot in the door, or he goes to Metropolis like, gee, what job? I need some sort of a job that would allow me to know when the big action is happening so I can go put my suit on. I like that
Clark, he wants to go to the place where they always have the news stations on so he can react to those.
I like that, right, which is hilarious. You guys are a newspaper. But I like that he is, that he's already kind of carved out his identity as a reporter, and he seems to be already... He seems to already kind of have that value system and sense of self-worth and certainty before he ever puts on the Superman costume. That's kind of different. That's
I like that idea. I don't think it's in the book.
No,
I don't think it's executed. Once he gets to Metropolis, he has that interview with Lex and he's fumbling, bumbling Clark. He doesn't, when he goes on this thing with...
Is it supposed to be he kind of changes his tune and what he is as Clark when he puts on the costume?
Maybe? I don't know. Because when he goes with Lois...
Well, we don't really talk about that very much. It's really just if you change your hair and your glasses, no one will know you're Superman. I don't remember him and his mother really talking that much about mannerisms and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when he first goes to Metropolis, he's reading a book on acting, but
oh yeah.
So he goes to this interview with Lex Luthor, and Lois is with him because she's supposed to be showing him the ropes or whatever. That's the point where he should show the reporter that they hired, right? That's the point where he should really have a spine and look, I'm not just this ditzy guy. I'm a little uncomfortable in social situations, but I can do this job. It's inconsequential that he's a reporter.
And he's in competition with Lois to some degree. I mean, they're forced to be partners like they often are. But he's gotta show her he can do the job. I mean, you're right about that.
And we never see him as a reporter. We get a couple of things where well, Kent gave me this great story about this, and I'm like, okay, when did that happen? There's one specifically where we're told that he's the guy that interviews the lead Lex henchman at the end. And I was like, why didn't I get to see that? It's inconsequential that he's a reporter in this. He's just at the Daily Bugle planet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I like about it is just ideas that you're right, maybe aren't.
I mean, that's the thing I can say a lot about this book. I think there's some interesting ideas. I think Lex is an interesting idea. I think he's a cardboard cutout of a bad, like he's a straw man for a bad person. Like I don't know what he's supposed to represent other than he keeps saying he's better than everyone. Like he's not a nuanced character. There's nothing to him. He's just better than everyone. And here's the thing, he is better than everyone. Yeah. And everyone is dumber than him, and the book never stops and goes like, well, yeah, it must suck to live in a world where everyone's a Neanderthal next to your intelligence. We don't think about that. He's just a jerk. He's just a bad person. And there's no...
And that really hurts Clark because it feels like they're friends because that's what it's supposed to be, and isn't it?
I still don't understand why they were friends.
And ironic. I don't know why they're friends. Except that Clark will give him the time of day, but you could flesh that out where it's just he's nice to everyone and he's trying to give this guy the benefit of the doubt, and it kind of seems like they just hang out together because that's what's supposed to happen, and it's ironic that they're friends, and then later on. And also, I'm not sure I totally bought that whole notion that it isn't in Lex's nature or character to remember Clark because of the kind of person he is. That whole thing was weird.
Yeah, I don't buy that. That seemed like an act, but it's never confirmed as such.
That was my thing. I was like, surely that's an act. Surely he's just pretending. I mean, yeah, it's been 10 years and they were kids, but they were teenagers. It
was a whole year together.
But it's only been 10 years.
And I think what we're supposed to get, what he's supposed to have seen in Lex, is that he's also an outsider that feels distance from people.
Right.
The problem is they never have that conversation.
Yeah.
What you see is Lex Luthor constantly saying, everyone's so dumb, why can't they just see the things the way I do? And then Clark talking to his parents and going, yeah, he's also distanced from people. But Clark doesn't ever seem to have that conversation with Lex. He's never... And maybe he can't. Maybe he thinks he can't because he can't tell him what he is. But that seems to be what he connects with Lex on. But Lex doesn't know that. Lex doesn't know he's connecting with him because he doesn't see Clark as a distanced guy.
No.
Because he thinks he's just a normal person. So, I think that's what he just sees in Lex, but I don't know what Lex sees in him that he lets him stick around other than...
Yeah, it's partly just, well, this is a guy that will tolerate me, but more of it is just, it's somebody to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wants Lab Monkey. Also, everyone refers to Lex as Mr. Luthor. Everyone that works for him refers to him as Mr. Luthor, and every time I read it in the Superman the Movie voice. And I'm pretty sure it was different characters, but every single time I read it, I was like, Mr. Luthor?
That was the thing. There are, yeah. Anytime you read Mr. Luthor, you have to put the hard O in there. It's Mr. Luthor. I feel like there are places where the references are laid on a little thick. And you just reminded me of that, like,
and they're all the obvious ones. They're the ones I would do.
Yeah,
this is the guy who knows Superman better than anyone else on the planet.
Yeah, it seems like he's really concerned that everybody gets it. And I think he's overcompensating because he wants to make sure that everybody reading it understands what he's doing, and so he lays some things on too thick. The only example I can think of right away is like right away in the first few panels that Superman deals with Lex. He says disease maniac just like right away.
Yeah. The biggest, I think Lex in some ways is the biggest problem with this book because Lex and
sucks because he's pretty much the thing I was interested in.
Well, and I think that's the problem with this. I think that's one of the major problems with this.
I mean, I really let's back this up for a second, just so that I can say I really like the idea that Lex is basically looking for Superman, and then ends up finding him and not realizing it. I think that's a really cool idea.
Here's what I don't like about that.
Okay.
So he knows that that kryptonite makes Superman weak.
I mean, what I mean is before there is a Superman, like he's feeling out. He's trying to find aliens.
The irony that he's with the aliens.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea.
Okay, but here's my...
And again, that is sort of a Smallville thing. And I liked it there too. I mean, I liked that there's a real explanation for why he's in Smallville in the first place. And I like that he tracked the Kryptonian technology there.
And I like that he's already like. an alien believer. Like, he doesn't get there, find something, and that makes him, like in Smallville, he doesn't care about that stuff until it shows up. I like that he's already tracking it. He's like, already looking for aliens.
This is a classic quintessential Lex thing, at least the corporate mogul version. I mean, you can do this with the scientist version too, but it wasn't until we got to corporate mogul where Lex's whole thing is he hates the idea of an alien that everybody believes in because that's cheating, and a human being should be like, you can't trust that, and a human being should be the person that has the power if he proves himself worthy, and all of that. And so I like the idea of a Lex that's like looking for alien technology so he can quelch that.
That's also a question I have about Lex, but I'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
I think this book thinks we're going to be riveted by the Superman and Lex back and forth and the ideological battle. I think this book hinges on that, and the problem is I have no idea who this Superman is, and Lex is boring.
Yeah.
The thing with the aliens is, by the end of this, I don't know what Lex actually wanted from that.
Yeah.
Because Superman exists.
It's impossible to not just project what you already know about these characters onto this book.
Yeah.
And he almost invites you to.
Because Superman exists, and Lex isn't excited. He immediately goes negative, and I don't know why. I don't know if he's been terrified of aliens his entire life, and he's trying to protect it, because he doesn't seem to be. He seems to be fascinated. He's always been looking for a more advanced civilization that he could have a dialogue with. And there is a moment when Superman's talking to him...
And you'd think that would be because he can't relate to human beings, so he's looking for what he can relate to.
Yes! And there's a moment when Superman's talking to him where he like snaps, where he's like, you don't get to look at me like that. You don't get to talk to me like that. I spent my whole life looking for you, and now you're looking at me the way I look at other people. But he was a jerk to him, because this Lex isn't a character. He's like, by the way, Superman, I'm gonna kill you. What do you mean you're mad at me? Now I'm angry. Like, he never tried to talk to Superman. He never tried to be Superman's friend and see if he knows more than him or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know what he wants.
And also, you'd think that... I mean, this is complicated. You'd think that... or convoluted anyway. You'd think that Lex would maybe have a hint at the fact that Clark is Superman because of his being affected by kryptonite in his presence.
Yeah, that's a big question I have.
And it seems really contrived and unbelievable, especially if Lex is this much of a genius, that he reads Clark being sick as, you're looking at me the way people always look at me. I didn't buy that scene at all.
I didn't buy it at all, especially because he's colored green.
Yeah.
And then when he later finds out...
Yeah, you're right, he's got a sickly color.
When he later figures out that Clark is... And maybe that's on the art, and we'll talk about the art.
Yeah,
but he later discovers that Superman's weak to kryptonite, and there's no connection in his brain. He figures this out
there should be.
Just from theorizing about Superman, that this is what this will do.
It's that Smallville compartmentalizing thing where we make certain characters really smart but really dumb in the scenes where we need them to not pick up on the fact that Clark has superpowers. It drives me crazy because, again, I wanted to love that.
Yeah, I think there's good ideas in this. I think it's all poorly delivered. I love I like a lot of the ideas. It's philosophically the right way to put it. Like, no one's a character in this book. Everyone's a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
I like the ideas that they're trying to convey. The problem is they're telling me the ideas they're conveying.
Yeah. The two ideas that, and remember, this is 2004. We talk about this kind of stuff with Superman all the time now, but I think this was probably one of the first things that attacked it like so blatantly. The idea that it's difficult to be Superman in a polarized world, in a world where people don't trust people, and B, it's difficult to make readers in that real world, appreciate Superman because they don't think he could really exist because they don't trust people. But Lois gives like a whole speech about that, and it's not her talking, it's Waid. I mean, like,
it's an essay.
This would be so much better served as a paper. And I've read some of Waid's essays. He's a really good essay writer. I like reading what he has to say about why Superman is important, but he basically just wrote a fictionalized version of a paper that tells you why Superman matters so much, and I agree with him. But it's kind of tiring.
It doesn't feel like a story.
Yeah,
and everyone feels like that, or most all the characters feel like that. We're like, they're just espousing a viewpoint, and whenever it's, and like it's the same with the viewpoints that Waid thinks are positive or negative. The people who are saying things that are bad are like straw man, just cardboard cutouts. Like, I don't trust people. Like, kind of like they're just saying what you're supposed to get from them.
You can always tell who you're supposed to agree with and who you're not. That's problematic.
Yeah, because no one feels like a character. It doesn't feel like you're reading a story. It feels like you're being talked to.
Or at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. Like, I don't like this Lois.
Which is probably partly why Lex doesn't really come alive for you, because he's saying all the wrong things, and so he doesn't exactly become a sympathetic character that you can understand why.
But the way he's painted, I feel like he should be.
Yeah, he should be, certainly.
But he's just a bad person. I need more than that, especially when the entire reason for his existence is that he's smarter than everyone. He feels disconnected.
Doesn't he have some throwaway background that's supposed to kind of give him that worldview where like he has a father that treated him poorly? I can't remember what that whole thing was.
Yeah, it's something, and their house burned down, and his parents died or whatever.
Right, but does he do it in this version?
I don't remember
fault this time. I don't think it is, but I don't recall.
I don't remember. Or is it when the kryptonite explodes?
And his parents aren't named. Oh, is that
it's
what
when the kryptonite explodes, that's when his parents
You just read it, okay. It's been a while.
Yeah. It's when the kryptonite explodes.
Okay, so it's his fault, but it's not deliberate.
Yeah, it's an accident.
The way it usually is. Usually it's I burned them up in a tenement fire so that I could start my so that I could get the money from the insurance and start my company.
And we still have his hair gets burned off by kryptonite flame, so he's bald. I mean, it's not stated, but his hair's on fire.
That one I'm okay with.
Okay.
Like that I kind of like, because the key word there is kryptonite. It's kryptonite that does it. Like it's not always kryptonite. I feel like the Golden Age version of it is he just gets his hair messed up in chemicals or something. Like
yeah.
But I don't know what about it being kryptonite makes it any better. So never mind. I guess I'm just used to the Smallville thing, even though it was really silly when it happened. But I'm used to it now, so that it doesn't seem as silly. Okay, you're right.
But I just
you're right. We do that.
It's just it's a really preachy book.
Yeah. And a lot of what it's preaching about, I agree with. And again, I like what it has to say about why people in this day and age don't appreciate Superman and don't feel like they can trust him.
No,
that Lois speech is really good if it's just Waid talking to a college.
Yeah, absolutely. If this is just his essay on why we should like Superman, that's fine. But he's putting it in the mouths of people that are supposed to be characters. I don't like this Lois. One, because I have no idea who she is outside of she's the one that says everything that Mark Waid wants you to know about Superman. She is just generically good, and for some reason sometimes kind of a jerk because Lois Lane's supposed to have like some spunk to her. But like the traditional Lois Lane character and what she says written by Waid never mesh for me. Like she seems like this really optimistic, real strong-willed person. Except for when she treats Jimmy badly, and things like that.
Right.
Where it's like it's two different persons, and it's like, well, I know she's supposed to be like this, but I wanted to say these things, and they just don't go together.
Yeah, and Lois is, Jan, I almost said is supposed to be. I mean, I suppose you can do different things with it, but typically Lois is a massive skeptic, and she's a pessimist.
Yeah, I like Lois as a cynic that Superman turns around.
Yeah,
that's so much more powerful than Superman showing up and going, well, that person agrees with me.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
and Lois almost defines him. I mean, there's a little bit of there's almost a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing there, where it's like how much of that does he bring with him, and how much of it is she tells him what he should be like, so he's like. I mean, like I said, you've got that speech where he's telling her why it's hard for people to appreciate him, and he obviously wouldn't have thought of that on his own. But I just feel like that particular moment, there's maybe a little bit of she's telling him what he's supposed to be.
Yeah. Are you interested at all by the overarching plot of this?
Not really.
Which, by the way, wormhole, that seems like the wrong term, right?
There's a lot of scientific terminology issues with this.
Lex has like
and I thought the writing was off kind of in general. We're being real hard on this, but like I think part of the problem is I've read recent Waid, and he's come a long way since this, but it's weird because he was a veteran writer already. I mean, like he'd already
had a celebrated Captain America run.
Yeah, I mean, I forget when he starts. Does he start in the early 90s? Or
I think he starts in the early 90s because he writes some X-Men stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, like he's already
responsible for Onslaught.
Well, but also his Flash run is in the 90s.
Yes, you're right.
I'm just saying I can't remember if he did anything in the 80s.
I don't think so. I think he comes about. I think he might have been like working, but not as a writer.
So he's a veteran. He's been here for over a decade.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like that.
Yeah. It's not like the wet behind the ears Bendis that starts with Sam and Twitch and then does Ultimate Spider-Man and then
you can watch the evolution of his.
You watch the evolution, and then when you get to his Daredevil, it's like, oh, okay, he's arrived. You know, Waid already arrived. You know, and then he writes something that feels a little bit beneath him as far as like a lot of the dialogue writing and the
actual craft of it.
The craft of it. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it might be a case for and this is weird, but like not having the like fanboy people on the characters, because Slott has the same issue, where it's the people that are mega fans don't actually like almost have overthought this character and oversimplified and over-exaggerated everything, and they don't know how to actually write the character. They're thinking about it too much.
I didn't think of that. There is a lot of that Snyder problem where you're spending so much time. I mean I like Snyder's Batman more than I'm liking this.
Well, sure,
but I've talked about how Snyder too often, not all the time, but too often will just kind of like break the character down on the page instead of just telling a story and then allowing us to deconstruct it.
Yeah, there's no subtext to this book. It's all text.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to analyze because it's analyzing, and that's what I said with Snyder, especially with
Endgame.
Endgame. Thank you, Eric is always able to come up with story arc names before I can. But yeah, where you get that stuff with him and the Joker at the end, where I'm like, well, could you let me get in here and like have a read on it? Because there's no read. You're analyzing your own work on the page, and that's exactly what he's doing here. Although you could read this as a fictional analysis of what Superman has been and what he's looked at now, and I guess you could even say that that's what Snyder's Batman is doing. But that's not as compelling as a story that then I can break down. And I'm also not saying that characters should never discuss real-life philosophical issues because they need to have their own voices and their own opinions and their own and their own moralities and things. But when that's working is when you're not entirely sure if you're seeing the writer saying what he thinks about something or the character, and that's when he needs to fade away. He never fades away. I'm always hearing his voice as these characters are talking.
Yeah, you're always aware that it's Mark Waid.
Yeah, not just that there's a writer there, specifically that it's Mark Waid.
Yeah, but with the wormhole thing. Okay,
yeah, sorry.
So the plot of this book is that Lex has opened a wormhole, but it's not a wormhole. It's more like a viewing globe. He can see Krypton's past. That is not what a wormhole is.
Yeah, it can be. It would depend on the size. Okay, so there's a Voyager episode called Eye of the Needle, where there's a micro wormhole that is opened, and there is a dialogue that Janeway has with a Romulan in the Alpha Quadrant, and they're trying to figure out how to expand it or something so that they can go through. Or is it? I forget if it's a micro wormhole or if they just aren't passing through it yet. But I think that's why it's called Eye of the Needle. It's a micro wormhole. Anyway. Spoiler alert! But the big surprise at the end is they've been talking to a Romulan 10 years in the past, and so he's not going to be able to help them the way they thought because he's not even around anymore. And I think they find out that he died. Anyway, it's a pretty good episode. But the point I'm making is there is precedent in things for wormholes being used as just communication devices.
Okay,
but I don't know if we get the size of it.
It seems like whatever it needs to be for the scene.
Because if it's a regular
he just projects
size
on screens.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But you're right. It does seem like the thing about it is it doesn't seem like it's a wormhole that just goes to one place. It seems like it goes to
infinite time,
different time periods,
just parts of Krypton. It reminds me of
Now that we're getting back into that, I'm remembering that it's he sees a bunch of different time periods.
It reminds me of the there's a short story Philip K. Dick wrote called Paycheck, which was made into a terrible movie with Ben Affleck.
I remember liking that movie, but I haven't seen that in forever. It's pretty bad.
It's not good. Especially if you read the short story, because I like the short story a lot.
Sure.
But they have in that movie and the short story, they have this thing that's called a I want to say it's like a time screen, like something like that. It's just a television that lets you see the past, and that's basically what Lex has. Except sometimes, or at least once, Lex is like, "Send me guns." I was like, "But you've never." Nothing's ever gone through. You haven't thrown anything through. They haven't thrown anything through. And you keep saying wormhole, but it doesn't seem like it's a wormhole. It just seems like it's a television to the past.
And am I wrong about this? There are times where it seems like they can see him and times where they can't.
They can definitely see him sometimes. Because the only time this...
Yeah, and it's a little... And he's trying to tug at your heartstrings, but I don't think it quite works. There's a really... The timing is real easy, right? Where Superman gets to talk to his parents before they put him in the rocket.
That's the only thing, that's the only thing that affected me in this whole book, because I was like, oh, that's kind of touching.
But again, I don't know if it's really playing in the scene, or if it maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it's not him talking to them. It's them getting to see that right before the planet explodes. I really
Is that what it is? I think they actually had a little bit of a discourse.
Well, they don't talk back and forth, but like he says stuff, and we see it from his perspective where he's talking to them. And then we cut to their perspective, and that the last thing they hear is like, "I made it," and something. And I really liked it on their side.
Yeah, sure.
I don't care that he got to see his parents. I care that his parents got to see him, and I think that's a nice little moment. I'm not saying it's great.
I just wish it was a less generic Krypton.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we get like 6 pages of it, but we do that with Krypton a lot, and maybe I'm expecting, I don't know, maybe these are unfair expectations. Every time we get a new Krypton now, it's hard for me not to want it to be unique in some way, or why even give it to us? But then you have that question, right, where should the piece completely stand on its own if you've never read Superman anything, but then who's going to pick this up that's never read Superman anything? I mean, I want to err on the side, I'm conflicted, I want to err on the side of this should not require any prior anything to come to it, but at the same time, the majority of us that are going to look at it are going to have certain, or are going to have expectations, so...
well, this was pitched as like an Ultimate Superman, where like you can hand this to anybody and get them in the Superman comics with this.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's really true.
I don't think you could. And this...
I feel like it's informed too much by what it expects people to know, just in structure, if nothing else, just in he's like right away we do the Krypton thing, and then right away we get to adult Clark that's not Superman yet, and like I think people that aren't familiar with this material, if they were to read it, would maybe be, especially knowing that it's supposed to be an origin, I think would read those 2 chapters that you don't even think should be here and find themselves kind of antsy to get to the important stuff.
Yeah, which is different than something like All-Star Superman, where it puts the
I can be more patient because I know what's...
Yeah, yeah. All-Star Superman has that great opening page where it's like there's a boy in a rocket and the planet explodes, you go boom, and
yeah, right.
Which is exactly how Morrison wrote it. But that's a book that's dealing with the cultural impact of Superman and assumes you know it. This book does not seem that way. This book seems like it thinks you can read on its own, but I don't think you can. And their Krypton... Here's the thing.
It's like Man of Steel, where it's asking you to look at it as an alternate take.
I get the impression that Mark Waid thought this Krypton out really much and gave us none of it, because we see a history of a world with no context. We see wars with no context.
That's a great point.
I don't know, and I don't know what kind of Krypton this is. I don't know if this is good Krypton or bad Krypton. I don't know if they foolishly ignored what was happening on their planet and it blew up and Drell was the only person, or...
We can assume they don't have birthing matrices.
We can assume they don't have birthing matrices, but I don't know anything about this Krypton, which is a problem, because this book is kind of all about Krypton, and Lex's fascination with it.
That's a good point.
Wouldn't it be more interesting...
He kind of keeps in the background like that mythology is not important, but then when you... Yeah, because you've got all those... You've got all those, some are fake and some aren't, which is a little awkward, of all the technology.
One of the big ones is the one Superman's fighting, and then it's not there.
So, like,
he's fighting a big, like, spider mech, and they're like, Superman was fighting a spider mech, but now he's fighting air, and I was like, so what, was it, like, hard holograms?
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, is it like a holodeck with the safeties off? What is it? By the way, can we assume that the spider thing was a nod to Superman Lives?
I never thought about that, but that's exactly what it is, right? It has to be.
I mean, by 04 we knew this.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. We absolutely knew this. That Kevin Smith DVD comes out in like 02. So
how do you see a Spider-Mech thing in anything with the Superman character even in it, and not immediately think Superman lives?
We watched Batman Superman with this big Spider-Mech, and you didn't think that?
We watched what now?
The Batman Superman animated movie, and there's a big Spider-Mech in that. We had a whole conversation about Spider-Mechs.
No, I did think of it. I just didn't get a chance to mention it. That's not out yet. That's a Batmania commentary. But anyway, there was something.
Wouldn't it be more interesting?
I'm sorry. You
wouldn't it be more interesting if this Krypton did reflect Lex's worldview, and he was more connected to Clark's home than Clark ever could be? Because
that's good. Yeah.
What if it was a bad Krypton, and like?
Yeah, or what if he thought he understood it because he doesn't have enough context when he's looking through the wormhole, and then he tries to explain it, to explain Clark's heritage to him, and then somehow, or rather Fortress of Solitude, whatever it is, Clark actually figures out what it really is and brings it to Lex and is like, you don't understand my background at all. Either of those is interesting.
Because Lex seems kind of delusional in this.
Yeah.
He just keeps talking about, but because they do the Kryptonian language, I never know what these people are saying. Like, I don't know if Lex is actually getting anything out of these things. It's all so in the background. Also, I'm done. I've complained about this before, but it's all over this book. Even when it doesn't need to be. Dark face, glowy eye Superman.
I know.
Sometimes it's in there. Like, okay, but sometimes, like, I know what that's supposed to represent.
If Jeff Loeb is writing, you'll see it in every issue.
And it's like, it's supposed to be,
and
like,
this is that time, right?
This is that time.
This is World at War. World at War. Yeah. This is like right when that's happening.
Like,
I think.
Like, usually when we do that, it's like Superman's pissed. This is real. Like, Superman's angry, and like sometimes you should be scared of Superman.
You don't want to overuse that.
It's all over. Sometimes he's just standing up, and we're shooting him like that, and I don't understand. Like, I get it kind of looks cool, but it doesn't look cool anymore because we've used it so much. There's a couple of panels of this where he's just... There's one specifically where he is just standing up. He's not scaring anybody, he's just standing up.
If you're making... And again, that might be more on the art than it is on Waid. Waid might not have on every other page written make sure that he's got the scary eye. But when you're writing a book that's supposed to be about why we need Superman now more than ever... Why would you do that?
Ever. Yeah, in that book. You shouldn't do it at all.
I mean, I could see doing it once or twice. I could see
to
saying,
intimidate
like,
Lex or something like that.
Sometimes you need to be intimidating. You know, Superman can't be a nice guy all the time. It's not like he doesn't have... it's not like he doesn't have teeth. It's just that he's a good person. You know, sometimes you have to be strong. Sometimes you have to carry a big stick, whatever. But, okay, I've got to hear you complain about the encrypted message thing.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the parents.
Okay.
So let's get into the parents and talk about that whole thing.
Okay.
Now, let me just say, kind of like is Jonathan and Martha okay?
Yeah.
Kind of do. Again, ideas maybe more than characters, but overall, no, they're okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
I like that Martha, before we get into the encrypted thing, because I guess we should set this up and talk about the parents for a minute. Sorry, I'm like structuring what I'm doing as I'm going. I like the idea that Martha becomes obsessed with UFO stories. I think that's one of the few really original ideas he has. I think that's really cool. Man of Steel tried to bring that in, but not with her, but with Jonathan. But it's just like articles on the back wall, and
this is clearly a book that they read making Man of Steel.
Yeah,
right?
and so like I wish we talked about it more there, but or at all. That'd be great. And Snyder had no coverage in that movie, so you probably didn't even see it. You probably didn't even notice it. But anyway, I liked it. I like that not only is she like looking for signs of other aliens and trying to figure out his origins and stuff, but that she gets involved with his superheroing at the end because she has something to offer. I think that's I think that's a good idea.
Well, and I like when we use Mom and Pa Kent. Lois and Clark did this where they're the only people he can talk to honestly, and so he's always talking with his parents. Like they're who he talks to.
Until Lois knows.
Yeah, they're the people he talks to when he needs to talk to them. And I like Jonathan and Martha. They're like that. I don't know.
He's got to stick to his roots or he'll lose himself.
I don't know how I feel about the message exchange they have near the end, where Jonathan says, "We thought this could work. It doesn't. Come back. Come home." I don't know how I feel about that. Now, To be fair, he is not telling them
but
to...
he's uncertain throughout the whole thing, and I actually found that kind of compelling.
The thing that I guess makes it more okay is Clark has explained Lex is doing this, and he's like, well, then Lex is going to clean it up. No one's going to be hurt by this. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Like, this isn't... This is a fake invasion. It's not actually Brainiac.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just not sure how I feel about a Jonathan that says come home.
Well, how did you feel about a Jonathan who's really conflicted and at first is a little too selfish and doesn't even like the idea of Clark putting on a costume and being Superman?
I don't mind that. That seems to be a thing that pops up with Jonathan, isn't it? I feel like I've seen that before. Maybe
I don't
not.
know. That seemed real new to me.
Okay.
I mean, it's obviously Man of Steel does it.
Yeah.
But this feels like how that maybe should have been handled in Man of Steel, where he has understandable reasons, but he is also too in his own head, and I like the way that we get him out of that. One scene I did find somewhat touching was when he flies with Clark, and he's like, I've never done this before, and Clark never thought to do that with him before.
No, that's a nice scene.
That is a nice scene.
Do you want to talk about the encrypted emails?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we get these emails. I assume it'll be over here or underneath of us. We'll be looking at the panels.
It'll be. I hope I don't do this wrong. It should be there. It
should be over here.
It should be there.
Okay, so look over here. There's the sequence where Clark is messaging his mother, and it's to Martha Kent at something something, and it says encrypted, and it's an email, but it's also a chat room where they have usernames and they're just responding back and forth like text, and they have fake names. Martha's Area 52, which is real on the nose, and Clark is mild-mannered, which is real on the nose for completely different reasons.
Right.
And first of all, those are the worst code names, because he's doing this at the Daily Planet. If anyone looked over his shoulder and saw Area 52 and mild-mannered, like, I'm going to ask questions. When an alien
invasion starts and Superman's in the middle of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to ask questions about that. But, so they're chatting back and forth like a chat room, but it says it's an email, and it says it's encrypted, and they're using fake names, but then they just say... he just refers to Ma and Pa, like, so.
Well, don't forget. Also, her name is in
it's
the email address. There's an email address, and it says Martha Ken.
So
or something at Ken.
If you're encrypting it, you're assuming that no one's going to see it. So just talk normal.
Yeah.
But they seem to assume...
It's from clark.kent@kent.com, encrypted, and then they're using code names.
Yeah.
Why are they using code names? If anybody actually sees this,
they're still going to know.
From.
Yeah, and they're still going to know, because you're saying Mom and Pa, somebody's talking to his mom. Clark Kent's probably talking to his mom.
And they mention Lex
Luthor. And they just talk real candidly, which is fine because it's encrypted.
Right.
But why go through this extra level of... I don't understand what the extra level is.
It reads very much like somebody who doesn't get how the internet works.
Yeah, it reads like Mark Waid is not on the internet yet.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand what's happening. And
I feel like even 4 years later, he would have to come back and look at this and be like, "Oh God, that's
why." Like, if you're gonna have the code names, make that the email address, mild-mannered@mild-mannered.com or whatever, encrypted.
Right.
I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand the physics of it.
To be fair, I didn't even think about it, and then Eric brought it up to me after he read part of this, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's hilarious."
Yeah. It's not how technology works, and I don't know what to take from it.
You want to talk about the art?
Sure, let's talk about the art.
It's rough.
It's Lionel Francis Yu, who I'm not a fan of in general. I've read a lot of his work, actually, because he works with Bendis a lot, he works with Millar a lot. He did some of Ultimate Avengers, he did Superior.
First of all, can I say he's just not right for this book?
He's really wrong for this book.
I get him with some Millar work.
Yeah.
If he's worked with Millar, I can see that. I get that.
Yeah, because he's got that edgy, jaggedy kind of style.
Yeah, and Millar does a lot of... I mean, he calls himself a cynic, and he does a lot of work that's about you know, the cynical world we live in, and so his people are ugly, they should look ugly. These people should not, at least some of them.
No, and there's so many sequences where, like, you get Superman, it's supposed to be this big, heroic, like, awe of Superman, and I never feel it. But I don't like Linnell Francis Yu in general. He's just not my taste, but he seems
Yeah, I mean, some of it is a taste issue, certainly.
He seems really wrong for this material. This Superman never feels majestic, he never feels... I wouldn't trust the Superman.
Is the idea supposed to be that... And here's the problem. Maybe we went to him because the idea was supposed to be it's Superman in the modern age, so we want to over-exaggerate how scary and ugly the world looks like and then introduce Superman to it, but Superman shouldn't look that way.
No, you need someone with range that can go out of that, and he can't. So his Superman never looks like Superman.
I didn't mind that Man of Steel looked like a dark, bleak world, and you introduce Superman to it.
It's a Powerpuff Girls thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, I almost went on a whole Powerpuff Girls in the rewind for Man of Steel, or maybe I did leave that in. I can't remember. I can't remember if I left it in or if I took it out.
I think you left it in. I might be wrong.
But I was gonna do a whole thing about how Powerpuff Girls did Man of Steel better than Man of Steel. Anyway, I'm sorry, guy. I digress.
But yeah, like when you look at his like Superman glory shots, like the shots where it's supposed to,
like, a couple of them kind of work.
Look at that. Like, yeah, I don't like his Superman, and
that's better than half the other things you could have pointed
he's never inspiring.
Yeah, and this is also, it's weird. It's almost like...
This sequence was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. It's almost like there's this period...
We're not going to tell you what the sequence is. It was just know it was ridiculous.
It's about white supremacy. We should mention that this is that period in the early 2000s where it seemed like DC had a mandate where where there's a quota where Superman must close his eyes a certain amount of time, and we're doing that here, even though it's not the artist that you're used to seeing do that. So anyway, that's weird. But yeah, I don't know. This stuff doesn't bother me as much as some other things later. But
I feel like I'm supposed to be inspired by this, and I'm never inspired. I'm never like, wow, Superman, which is a thing that they get right in like Earth 1.
Yeah. Well, and Earth 1 hurts this book really hard.
Earth 1
because there are some things this tries to do that Earth 1 does better and more subtly, and it's gorgeous, and it's gorgeous between two different artists. I almost said drawers, but what?
No, that's what you keep your socks in.
Right. What's rough with this is you do have some pages like what you should. I'm just gonna put this up for myself so that I put the right pages up. The point of this, of course, is to have some big high-flying action without any dialogue and do some visual storytelling, and you need the words to drive this book because the art's not doing it for me, and because it's I don't know, it's too simplistic, and
there's points where I'm just flying through this because nothing's being said.
I don't want to see this without words, and that's really problematic.
Yeah, and there's not enough words in this. That's one of the reasons I think this could be 6 issues. I think there's 6 issues worth of words in this. Like, there's points where we get really talky, but a lot of it tries to be that, like widescreen comics kind of a thing, like Just League and the Authority and things like that, where it's like it's like a movie. It's sprawling and epic, and Linnell Francis Yu, A, isn't your guy for that, and B, it makes it feel like it's taking forever. Yeah, what is that?
What is it? Just these really weird...
Also, this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen ever.
I was going to ask you what you thought of that. I thought it is set up earlier that he can do that.
No, I just...
He's talking about the fact that we're just having a conversation amongst ourselves now. Don't mind us. No, Eric's talking about how Superman can, for some reason that's explained in here that we won't talk about, use his heat vision to put his costume back together.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with showing it to me because he's just doing this. It's so dumb. I mean, I wish he had like a double chin like normal people do when they do that.
The right artist, the right drawer could have given us that.
Or he's just doing this.
Are we
sure? This is also what he could be doing.
Are we sure that this guy's not Bizarro? I don't remember Bizarro in this book.
Yeah, but it's a Bizarro book.
Are you sure that's not Bizarro?
Yep.
There's one full-page spread that worked for me okay.
Is it the one with the big Superman ass?
Yeah.
Even this one, like, look how creepy Superman's looking at Lois here.
Well, and he looks like a different character on certain pages. if if this wasn't in a book where everybody's ugly, it's fine.
The Lex?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Lex looks fine.
Like that's like that. Like
Give a look at the Superman right above him.
Crazy Lex. It's just these weird, insane, exaggerated expressions.
He's got the weird teeth thing going on. No one ever talks about that. I feel like teeth are hard to draw for some artists. Like, people always talk about, like, feet and stuff. Like, I think teeth are hard to draw for some artists without making it look creepy, and he makes it look creepy.
Yeah, this
Luckily,
okay,
the next book is also...
But maybe I like this more just because most of what I'm looking at is a solid object that's not a person's face, and the person's face is kind of in the background, and I don't know. There's some real subtle symbolism going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's the rest of that person?
Oh my god. It's the one page I pointed out that I liked. Is she somehow like...
The arm is too long, it can't be a baby.
See, at first I thought it was a baby. I assumed it was a baby.
But the arm's way too long for a baby.
Yeah, so the only way this works is if her legs are wrapped... Here, we'll see if I can do it. Her
behind Superman, yes.
Wrapped behind him, but the legs don't stick out.
And
so,
she's upright.
So the only way... Right, so she would also have to be like sitting up like this.
And it looks like it goes here.
And
like the entire lower half of her body is...
Yeah, and so... But like, what's she attaching her feet to? Like the other side of his cape? Like, because... Is she not wearing shoes and she's using her toes? Like, that is, okay. Alright.
It's either that or it's supposed to be a child and its arm is freakishly long.
Yeah, yeah, but still, even if that's the case, where's the rest of... You still gotta wonder where the rest of the body is. You know, as soon as you mentioned that, as you pointed that out to me, I almost made this expression. I almost did that. What else should we say about this book?
I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't hate this book. I don't think this is an awful book.
I was bored.
It's one of those things where oftentimes it is worse to be boring than it is to be like.
It's worse to be mediocre,
yeah.
Especially if I have to sit through 300 pages.
Yeah, 12 issues. If this was 6 issues, I probably liked a lot more. It's such a slog.
It was edited down.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like it was different enough or unique enough to warrant 12 issues.
And would you buy this reading better monthly? I wouldn't.
No. And it's out of continuity. Take some risks. Do something. I might not have liked it because I didn't get to talk about this, or I didn't talk about this. But in the beginning, we're told that Superman has soul vision, which means that he can see people's souls or something. He doesn't say souls. He's like I don't know if it's souls or
Essences.
What. But people have like an aura to them. And
we could have done a Phantom Zone thing with that though.
And when they die, they're just like a hollowed husk, and it's really hard for them to look at. This power never plays in the narrative, and it's only there so that Mark Waid can make him a vegetarian, because there's no way that Superman would be a vegetarian growing up on a farm in Kansas. It's just Mark Waid pushing his own beliefs or thoughts or whatever into a character that doesn't need them. But going with all that stuff...
They only have wheat on that farm. That's all they have.
Going with the first two issues, it's priming you for something that is a radical, different, and if it's all that kind of stuff,
it's also
like vegetarian Superman,
a really political book, which it isn't quite.
Not really. I mean, it is a little bit. It's very post 9/11. We're talking a lot about protection and giving up freedom for protection and things like that.
True.
But which is still plays today, but in a different way, and mostly Mark Waid's fault. Not Mark Waid's fault. But it's...
And again, I have generally really liked Mark Waid. I was surprised.
I might not have liked the book that the first 2 issues set up. I might have thought it was too radical and different, but it sets me up for something that's really radical and different, and that's so traditional and so nothing. Like, it's just a Superman origin.
It's almost like the reverse Dan Slott problem, but for exactly the same reason, where like maybe sometimes people are too much of a fan of a character to really be able to like write that character effectively. You alluded to that earlier.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's what I think. I think Mark Waid is someone who has gotten too in his own head about what Superman represents to the world and could represent to the world, that when he got a chance to write Superman, he just wrote a book about what Superman represents to the world or could represent to the world. And that's not a story.
Now, you can tell a story where that's kind of front and center.
Yeah, you can tell a story with those themes and those ideas.
Yeah.
He didn't write a story.
Yeah, that could be the heart of it.
There's no characters in this book. They're just telling me why Superman's important and why the world's bad, and it doesn't feel like a story to me. And that's its biggest issue. That's his biggest issue. And because of that, I don't ever feel connected to these characters, and I never feel involved in the narrative, and I'm bored.
Yeah, and I need a story that I'm latching onto even harder because I don't like the art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've read books I love with art I don't care for. But if I'm struggling to know why I should turn the page with the story you're telling, looking at art I don't like, that's real tough for me with a comic book.
I don't agree with this quote on the top of the book at all.
Well, now you have to read it.
It's testament to Mark Waid's ingenuity that reading his version of Clark Kent's decision to put a cape on his back and an S on his chest feels like a breath of fresh air. That's the exact opposite of how I felt about this book.
This seems like the obligatory thing you'd say. That seems almost like this is going to sound awful, and I don't know who at Entertainment Weekly wrote that quote, but I mean you know wrote that in their article. But it seems like a thing that you come up with before you read it.
And this is the beginning of the we can't stop retelling Superman's origin.
Yeah.
So we have this, then we have Secret Origin, then we have the Action Comics New 52 and Earth 1, and now we've got Superman Year 1 coming out. We just keep doing this, and this is the beginning of just we can't stop retelling Superman's origin. I think there might even be another like a non-continuity mini that does Superman's origin 2 in there somewhere.
Well, to be fair, the Max Landis thing we're going to do isn't all origin.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
we're going to cap off with that. But American Alien, it gives us some origin, but then it gives us the future of it. Which I really like.
And neither was.
I mean, it's all early days of it, but it's also the thing that does that nothing we've looked at so far has really done is it ropes in the rest of the DC universe. Mm-hmm. So it's as much about how Superman fits into, because I'm gonna give away too much maybe when I say this, but I think it's kind of I can't remember because I read it in issues while it was coming out, but I can't remember if it's kind of an established universe that he winds up in, or if they all just kind of spread up at the same time. Mm-hmm. But he has to deal with Batman and Green Arrow.
And For All Seasons wasn't really an origin either. It was just an early days of Superman book that kind of played kind of like an origin, but not exactly. We ended up doing it, but maybe if because neither of us had read that. If we'd read it beforehand, we might have been like, well, that's not really an origin, but we read it anyway.
Yeah, and the only way we could have done all the big major solid origins would have been to talk about things we've talked about before.
Earth 1,
because we've done Earth 1, and Dan and I have done New 52.
Yeah. So we're not doing those in these. So we've only got 2 more left.
Which is sad because they're 2 of the best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Morrison stuff is wonderful. And
yeah,
Earth
I really
1
like it.
is maybe my definitive Superman origin now.
Mine as well.
Or at the very least, it's just a story I like a lot.
Well, and what's interesting
I love the 3-act structure, and I love the 3 books, and I love that it stands on its own, and I don't need more, but God, I want more.
Well, what's interesting is it didn't affect.
And Lex Squared is just the coolest thing.
It didn't affect my feelings on Man of Steel the miniseries or For All Seasons, but this is close enough to that it hurts this book. It is this book better,
especially because it also is Ultimate Superman origin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know who his Clark is, and I like his Clark. I have no idea who this guy is, except for what I'm told.
Right.
I never feel that way about him. But, yeah,
real lukewarm reaction from us.
I'm not saying that it's terrible or horrendous, I just think it's boring.
No, and I'm not even saying that I'm not glad I read it, but I do think that there are ideas that will stick with me before...
You'll never read this again.
I doubt it.
I doubt it. You want that book? I don't want it.
Well, anyway, everybody, thanks always for watching. No, I'm going to buy it in issues. Thanks again, folks. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again next time. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
Happy reading.